invincible.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a circuit that demands absolute precision, bravery, and just a little bit of luck. Tonight I'm your host, Sagar Bakshi, and it's green, green, green here at the Miami Autodromo Internazionale. Side by side, there goes Sean Stam, the Stamman, and the 000 as well. Papa Green made up 3 positions in 2 laps. With Leslie Simpkins now throws his elbows out at Drew. Tonight, the weather has decided to join the fight. Round 4 of the Sausage Dodgers Racing Endurance Tour, sponsored by Big Power Hunters, the fastest convertible in the world, powered by ES Motors, brings the GTP and GT3 fields to VIR. For a multi-class battle where the grip level may change faster than the running order. This is a circuit that demands commitment. The climbing S's reward confidence. Oak Tree determines the charge down the back straight. The roller coaster sends drivers downhill toward a final sector where one mistake can become very, very expensive. At a wet or drying surface, every familiar breaking point, racing line, and overtaking opportunity suddenly becomes a question mark. For the GTP drivers, enormous closing speeds will have to be managed on a circuit with very little room for improvisation. For the GT3 field, predictability becomes essential while they fight their own race and deal with prototypes, arriving through spray and changing conditions. And then there's this in strategy. When do you abandon the wet line? When does the crossover to slicks become worth the risk? In mixed conditions, the fastest driver may not be the one who wins tonight. It may be the driver who reads the racetrack first. Round 4 is ready. This is the Sausage Dodgers Racing Endurance Tour at VIR, sponsored by Big Power Hunter. Powered by ES Motors. Let's go endurance racing, folks. Welcome in to Virginia, folks. Welcome to one of the best tracks in all of motorsport here in Alton of Virginia, US of A. 5.22 kilometers of pure undulations here at VIR. Track conditions are going to be cloudy with pretty mild track temperatures for the drivers to contend with, running this clockwise circuit that opened in 1957. 17 corners in total. Of course, we have the climbing S's, the Oak Tree roller coaster, and Who can forget Hogpen that spits you out onto the front straight? Tonight, I'm your host, Sagar Bakshi, bringing you all the live pictures and coverage from green to checkered flag tonight. Couple keys to the race for the drivers this evening. Finding grip before everybody else does. That's key number 1. Key number 2, manage the multi-class traffic through the dangerous sections. Key number 3, getting the tire crossover just right. And key 4, surviving first, attacking second. That means VIR offers no margin for error once you leave the pavement. Mixed conditions makes every curb, painted surface, and braking zone more unpredictable. So think about that before trying to attack. Take a look here at Mattia Ubertali being the one to top the charts right now in the number 21 Absolute Motorsports machine. There'll be a fleet of Lamborghinis to top the charts, 1 through 4 right now, littered with them for the qualifying session. At least that's the way the cookie crumbles right now. Will there be, or can there be, a fighting Ferrari to garnish any of that ground? Charlie running into a little bit of traffic. The Malone McLaren of Zavagan being the driver to succumb to the off track there at Hogpen. That'll be a trip down pit road very slowly for Andrea in the 174. Diego Antonio Fiore being the next driver across the line will improve their personal lap time, this time by 44:08, puts them provisionally up into P2 Pendinelli, our championship leader right now in the number 28 for TRT. Up into 5th position there, but no holds bars for Matthew Clark, the first of the Brits, holding the bars back from the rest of them. Neil Thompson being the next driver back. Aguz Kuz in the number 12, and then Paolo Minetti, the 72, the 174 for Andrea Zavagan. Look at how thick the moisture is here. Just palatable. How much precipitation there is right now on the horizon. It's just a dramatic look at what's on the horizon. Rita Uhal coming across the line. Can they improve from 13th as they cross the line? It will be improvement 145.572. As they cross the line themselves. It will be an 8th position garnished for them. Bellino trying to get things done will cross the line next. Has a purple sector 5, but 3rd position is all she wrote there. 44.23 last time by 44.29er. So not too shabby, but not quite enough. This will be the last couple of minutes for the session. At least for the GT3 drivers. Then we'll obviously switch over to the GTP field, having their opportunities to get things done. It is just so thick out here. The cloud and the fog. Here is Mr. Andrew Kesterton in 14th place. The number 64 charges up the hill through the S's. And VIR is just a confidence-inspiring lap. Don't have the confidence in the car beneath you. You're not going to get the lap times you feel like you deserve. Especially at corners like South Bend, Oak Tree, the roller coaster, Hog Pen. Just name them all, might as well. Nick Ura's out on the racetrack trying to dodge some sausages. And the 55 finds P12 on their run. As the 15-minute mark concludes, we will start seeing the rolling out of the GTP field. A tenth apiece separates the top five, leaving them within 6/10 across everybody in the top five. Nick Ura's concluding that lap, and he should be parking it as the clock has struck midnight for the GT3s. We will start to take a look at the GTP field now. Beautiful paint schemes. This one's going to be belonging to Uncle Lloyd Butler. Michael D. West getting the first installation lap in for the GTPs. Piper will follow. And what an interesting qualifying session would be if the weather were to evolve during the qualifying session. Oh no, Uncle Lloyd with a spin. Coming out of left hook, Uncle Lloyd got on the loud pedal before the tires came up temperature and demanded too much of them. Here's the 797 of Tim Williams, the Sausage Dodger Racing Machine, trying to stitch it together now. Take a look at the points before we get too far into this one. It will be Casimiri who tops the charts in the GT3 category in front of Pendinelli in P2. Bellino in third. Just 9 points separates the top three right now. Mattia Ubertali with 106. Carino with 105. Augusto Sucosio in sixth. Fiore in seventh. Stagnito in eighth. Zavagan in ninth. Foman rounds out the top 10. Then we have Babrak, Sahula, Uilha, Angela Capoulas, Kesterton, Garcia, Zazura, and Kuz running out the top 18 in the GT3s. Over to the GTP category, it remains just as tight and a little bit spicier because Thomas Oliviati tops the charts with 132, but Dan Miller is just 6 points back. Then Michael West with 120. Mark Richards almost there in the top 10, but James Piper is 3 points away. Pim Van Gastel in 6th. Daniel Moffat, Robert Svor, Oscar Corbett, Rodden Efnig, Benedetto DeVizzo, Toby Deck, Simon Music, Oleg Karmanov, Konstantinos Nikolaitis, Tim Williams, Mauro Gaviotti, and Marino Kloarek round out the top 18 in the GTP category. Speaking of Piper, speaking of West, Piper at the top of the field right now, and West trailing. Michael West finds 2 3/4 of a second in front of Piper. And Piper snaps back immediately, 134.8 last time by. Not too shabby. Tim Williams cannot produce anything better than 4th position on that last run. Nick Ewer's in the chat saying, hope you can see us tonight with all the fog. It's like a winter night here in the UK. This is the worst weather I have possibly seen on iRacing so far in all my time in commentary. Here comes Lloyd Butler, goes up into 4th place in front of Mr. Tim Williams. This is some of the most brutal weather conditions and least amount of visibility I've seen. I've done a few dark races out there at some of the most illuminated or non-illuminated racetracks in the world. This definitely tops the charts though. Blimp cam unusable this evening. Looking at Richards, who can find P3 by the end of tonight in the championship, based on the way things are going for the rest of the drivers. Oliviati has a tall order to climb. Tim Williams and Uncle Lloyd Butler exchange a couple of positions. Mark Richards up into 4th, Uncle Lloyd down into 6th as William finds improvement. Speaking of Oliviati, there he goes up into P2, 134.049. On the left-hand side of your screen, Roberts 4 goes up and slips into P5. Driving the BMW. Konstantinos Nikolaitis gets an installation lap in, 137.988. And he'll be 4 seconds off the pace currently, but just getting those tires heated up is critical. Richards on this lap goes up into 3rd on that run, 134.491. Not too shabby. Marino Kloarek coming up the hill through the S's now. And good run for Marino Kloarek. Would be helpful. Coming down the back stretch, a little toe, never hurt anybody. Oliviati could be going into provisional pole here. He is going into provisional pole there. 1:33.496 will be the new pole time. Marino Clark doing everything he can, throwing everything. The kitchen sink is being left behind. But with 6 minutes left to go, the tires have got to be asking for a little bit of reprieve now. Right now, the running looks good for Marino Chloride for a top 10. I'm sure he'd like to do better than that. For getting a slowdown penalty, losing out ground. Michael West improves. A half a tenth is all he needed to get in front of Thomas Oliviati, the Italian. Uncle Lloyd in 8th position, trying to best a 1:33.442. Won't do it on that last attempt. A couple of green sectors on that last run, but it won't be his best work yet. 36.20. Best is a 35.88 for Uncle Lloyd. Dan Miller, we've got our eyes locked on you, sir. Especially after the performance of last week, we're gonna keep our eyes peeled on what Dan Miller can do. Dan Miller crosses the line. Needs to start getting the hurry up and go on. That's good enough for now. 4th position for Miller. 1:34.385. Bumps a few of his foes back. Thomas Oliviati going to be the driver to try to snap back on Michael West. Only needs about a tenth for TRT. A little bit of wheel spin coming down the hill through the roller coaster. Out of hog pin, a bit of oversteer. Will this be enough, or will this be a last lap dash for Thomas Oliviati? That will be it for him. He parks it for the end of the session. Dan Miller, what can you do to improve right now? Marino Cloraric crossing the line next. He'll get one more attempt out of it at the very least. But Konstantinos Nikolaitis will be the next driver to cross over the line, and he's going very slowly to the last sector and may have run out of fuel. Or may have just been staging himself for a last lap run here. Let's see what Nikolaitis can produce over the course of their final run. Just 15 seconds remain on the clock, but we'll see if the session ticks over. Final lap dash for Nikolaitis here. And he'll be able to produce his final lap. Coming down the back stretch, trying to give it everything that he can. All the way up to 200 kph out of the final corner. And Konstantinos Nikolaitis gets to the line at the end of the day, or does he end up falling? That'll be it for Nikolaitis. We'll get the official result posted here in just a moment, folks. Michael D. West took pole position in front of Thomas Oliviani by just a hair. Dan Miller trailed by half a second. And we have James Piper in fourth, Mark Richards, Roberts four, Marino Clark, Tim Williams, Oscar Corbett, Lloyd Butler, Konstantinos Nikolaitis, Daniel Moffat, and Benedetto De Vizzo, rounding out the 13 drivers. In the GT3, Mattia Ubertalli, Diego Antonio Fiore, and Damiano Bellino round out top three. Then we have the Vincenzo Stagnino for Sim Drivers EU, Mattia Penadelli, Matthew Clark, August Coos, Neil Thompson, Rita Uihao, Andrea Zavigan, Paolo Manetti, Nick Yours, Pavel Nimrava, Andrew Casterton, Igor Red Cove, Mike Campiello, George Angelopoulos, Karol Sahula, Ladislav Babarak, and more. Who's in that Pizza Hut livery? That is quite the paint scheme there. Of course, it's James Piper. Let's go through our starting grid, shall we? On the first row, it'll be Michael D. West and Thomas Oliviati. On row number 2, it'll be Dan Miller and James Piper. On the third, it'll be Mark Richards and Robert Spohr. Further down the order, Marino Clark and Tim Williams. Oscar Corbett and Uncle Lloyd Butler. On row 5. Row number 6, Konstantinos Nikolaitis and Benedetto De Vezzo. Row number 7 for Daniel Moffat and Mattia Ubertali. Row number 7. Row number 8 for Diego Antonio Fiore and Damiano Bellino. Row number 9, Vincenzo Stagnino and Mattia Penedelli. Matthew Clark and August Kuz round out P20. P21 for Neil Thompson and Rita Uyal. P23 for Andrea Zavagan and Paolo Minetti in P24. Row 13, Nick Ewers and Pavel Nemrava. Row number 14 for Andrew Kesterton and Igor Redko. Row number 15, Mike Capiello and George Angelopoulos. Row number 16, Karol Sahula and Ladislav Babarak. As someone who grew up in the foggy conditions of the Bay Area, man, these headlights make the fog so much worse as the lights refract off of the water and back into the camera lens. So blinding. But headlights on for safety here. And the drivers all gridded up 2 by 2, Noah's Ark formation. James Piper in third. Keep our eyes peeled on what he can produce, but it's also the GT3s we need to keep our eyes peeled on. Matteo Ubertali and Diego Antonio Fiore starting on that front row there. Michael D. West squares us off, headed down towards the stripe. Thomas Oliviati and Michael West go wheel to wheel, but Dan Miller's there in the background. Watch out for James Piper. What can he do as well from P4? Late on the brakes, Mark Richards is going to be the one to gain ground at the first corner. Konstantinos Nikolaitis, whoa, gives a little hip check, possibly. So I'm not sure who that was. Oscar Corbett, perchance. No, he comes through cleanly. Was that Uncle Lloyd Butler? Roberts 4. That is 4. And the GT3s are through on Sfor, who tumbles down the order with a rear wing that's missing. Diego Antonio Fiore and Vincenzo Stagnito lead Matthew Clark around, but where, oh where, has George Angelo Capoulas gone? Back here, a little battle between the C42 Racing Machine and August Kuz, the number 12 Ferrari. Things become inverted in the GTP category as Dan Miller able to get around Thomas Oliviani, but watch out for Mark Richards there, who gets a bit of a wiggle behind the TRT machine. The double three covers off the inside line, but he's too late on the brakes. Mark Richards sold the dummy and is able to accelerate through on corner exit. On board for a moment with Oliviani before we get up the hill to the S's. In his pursuit of glory and a podium, Mark Richards holds on to for the moment. Slow going McLaren there. Andrea Zabigan, driver, the GTPs are able to cut through. Oscar Corbett in a bit of a tussle right now with a good friend Marino Kloarek. The number 16 and the 998 are going to exchange wheel-to-wheel positions here. Dan Miller a little bit faster than Michael D. West last time by about a tenth, but a tenth is all she wrote between them as the last lap, fast lap, gets pulled out. There we go. Oscar Corb is going to chase down Marino Kloarek in pursuit of the top spot. But check out Stagnito's gap to Fiore. That gap also comes down between the GT3 leaders. Diego Antonio Fiore and Vincenzo Stagnito are definitely two combatants locked in an arms race right now, but Matthew Clark could be the one biding his time for now. Here in the background of all this, it will be a three-way squabble between Rito Uhal and Damiano Bellino. And who is that? That was going to be August Kuz in the background. Very late into the braking goes the 911, but mounts the curbing under the decompression zone and is able to get the tires tucked up beneath them. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Big wiggles there. The door opens for the 911 to Andrea Zavagan, who tries to make hay while the sun is shining. Obviously, we're all looking at the same racetrack here, as the sun is barely out here in Virginia. Little slip-ups through Oak Tree, compromise exits all the way down the front stretch. Antonio Fiore knows nothing of the like. He's leading the charge and continuing to gain a gap in front of Vincenzo Stagnito. Mark Richards finds a way past James Piper. Looking to see what happened there to Piper. Nothing happened to Piper. Konstantinos Nikolaitis here and Marino Kloarek. Wowza, there's a move to the inside from Benedetto Devezzo. No, that will be Oscar Corbett. The Sausage Dodger colors, 998, who works his way up into P7. Only under 9 minutes into this one, and we've seen so much action. This is telling for what the race will become here post pit stop cycle once the field starts slinking back together again. Oh, Marino Kloarek is off at the Oak Tree. Can he get it stitched back up in time? He can, but not without one more off and a scare to Mr. Tim Williams. Mattia Pendinelli here chases down Clark and Stagnito up the road in pursuit of his podium tonight. Matthew Clark is the gatekeeper of it. Now traffic definitely becoming a thing. Roberts 4. Now cutting through the field. After an early lap 1 incident, Roberts 4 going to be one to cut through the field like a knife. But over to the GTPs. Miller and West caught up in traffic. Miller almost had the opportunity to get past Michael West. And we get a sausage replay of how this all went down, coming down and towards turn number 1. Traffic giveth, traffic taketh away at the same breath. Blinky blinky from the leader of Michael D. West. He's boxed in, nowhere to go, and Dan Miller's off into the grass trying to recover. This is where things get a little bit more interesting as the race goes on. And traffic giveth, traffic taketh away still. A little bit of connectivity issues there for Miller and for West, as both drivers began blinking a little bit out of their control. Mark Richards there, ready to pick up the pieces. We look up ahead at Miller and West because they're nose to tail, despite their connection issues. Stay as glued to them as possible. All about speed and commitment. Here we go. Moves can be made, and Miller gets in front of West. And that's how easily traffic can brew battles in the leading class. West trying to recount his decision now to pick that line. Checking in back here with the GT3s because it's Diego Antonio Fiore and Vincenzo Stagnito nose to tail still. Oh, look at Miller go. Look at Stagnito go. Wheel to wheel with the 83, and they bump uglies at the roller coaster. What an amazing battle here for GT3 and GTP. Here we go again. Miller West, separated by 3/4 of a second. This traffic again leads to the separation. Whoa! What happened there? Big hit for the 83, and that's going to result in some wheel damage. Oh yeah, that's not going right. Fiore is going to have to make a pit stop, and that hip check isn't going to help him as he can't get the car stopped in time. Vincenzo Stagnito tries to get the elbows out, and then things get ugly there. Holy Toledo. Matthew Clark is the one to pick up the pieces. And he finds P1 right now. Holy smokes, what a turn of events in the opening 18 minutes. And now Matthew Clark has a big spin all on his own. That gives the lead back over to Stagnito. Checking in back here with the GTP leaders. Like West and Miller nose to tail. It's only a matter of time before this one comes back together again, as Miller and West are both going to leave it all on the line tonight. And we cannot rule out the likely event that James Piper might deliver us a pizza on the podium this evening. Piper having a quiet but deadly race so far with his one position gain this evening. Now has to deal with the fighting duo of Pendinelli and Stagnito eventually, but right now he's looking at the rear end of Ubertali and Zavagan. There was a lap time between Stagnito, Pendinelli, and Clark. Going the right way for Pendinelli the last few laps. Same for Clark as Stagnito duked it out early on. Things quieting down here in Virginia, folks. Nose to tail between these two right now. Stagnito and Pendinelli keep on exchanging blows against the stopwatch. Look at Pendinelli go as he grazes the track limits. He gains time on Stagnito like a menace. Michael D. West and Dan Miller are both alongside each other no longer as they go single file line up the hill and back down it into Oak Tree. Miller leads in front of West. Vincenzo Stagnito has been caught up to by Matteo Pendinelli here, the Ferrari, trying to do his worst to the Lamborghini. Stagnito with a brush of a mistake there opens the door, and Pendinelli want to take advantage of that run. What about Michael D. West and Dan Miller, excuse me, not James Piper. James Piper is back in third, 4.5 seconds back from this battle right here, so we won't talk about him again. They've all the nice things to be said for the podium. Now traffic becomes a thing not only for the GTPs, but for the GT3 field. We do have a limited fuel load for the drivers to have to deal with, and limited their additional tire set allocation, as well as their fast repairs. So, what that means for the field is that they'll have to deal with strategy calls that are basically set in stone. Yes, it will be a large fuel window as well for the 90-minute sprint that we're faced with, but a limited fuel load that brings it way back down to a manageable pit window. Michael D. West is off. Michael D. West has gone off. What happened to Michael D. West? What did happen? The Michael here. Oh, traffic. Oh, traffic will be a thing there. And Michael D. West will head down pit road. Get some damage repaired despite not having a meatball flag. Sees the writing on the wall that getting that damage repaired sooner rather than not would be imperative to his recovery drive. And a pit stop there as well from Marino Cloaric. This opened things up in the GTPs, but tightens things down in the GT3, as now we're focused our concentration on Pendinelli and Stagnito. Looking at the head-to-head between the duo here, Vincenzo Stagnito's losing about a tenth and a half per lap, unfortunately. So you need a little bit of luck. Catch up to Pendinelli, who started down in P5 to start off this event. And has climbed up 4 positions on his run. Dan Miller parking himself in between the GT3 leaders. Now no longer has the company of Michael D. West. It looks back and it will be James Piper 6 and a bit seconds back. But pit stops are called for Pinardelli as he splits this one down into thirds by the looks of it. Big drift there for Stagnito, and he leaves a couple of skid marks on the racetrack to boot. Neil Thompson here and Andrea Zavagan. Nose to tail. Konstantinos Nikolaitis, next driver to come into the pits in his Porsche. Difficult to see what the drivers are doing with the limited visibility here at VIR, and I wonder what the weather has in store for them as well. Track conditions are still cloudy, and the air temperature actually increasing a little bit, so it's the track temperature as the race goes on. Vincenzo Stagnito on his way out of pit road, where he finds himself adjacent to Pendinelli. Pendinelli just a nose ahead of Vincenzo Stagnito there. Separated by just a little bit on the racetrack. Right now, the gap sitting around 2.5 seconds. Bit of a hot lapping session now for some of the drivers, but this is where it's important to beat the stopwatch. You're beating the stopwatch against the opponents around you as well. Benito de Bezzo has 26 seconds to catch up over the next hour of time. If Benedetto can find a podium tonight, that would be an historic climb for him. He's already up 7 positions in the category. Benedetto negotiating traffic very carefully. The 184 is the one he's able to get by. Karo Sahula able to get by that one relatively well at the Oak Tree exit. Andrea Zavagin chases down Neil Thompson, still in their pursuit for the top 5. And Mattia Ubertali chases down Oilhal. Now, interesting to see the varying pit stop strategies come out from the field. Pair of GT3s have already come in. Pindelli and Stagnino versus a few that have decided to stay out. Here comes the GTP, the 998 of Oscar Corbett, and pit lane becomes alive with Dan Miller, James Piper, and Mark Richards coming down. Separated by just a little bit of time. It'll be Weehall coming down pit road next. Out from second position, tumbles down into third. And then Thompson will be the next one to come down next. Or not, as they both decide to stay out. Neil Thompson and Andrea Zavagin both decide to stay out here at the 40-minute mark. They're settling this one out on the racetrack, not in pit lane. Zavagin really doing a great job this evening to stitch these laps together behind the likes of Neil Thompson. A little bit of a mistake there from Thompson on exit of Oak Tree. Miller will get back into the lead of this one as Thomas Oliviati sits in the pits. Side by side down the backstretch, the TRT pilot looks at the inside and slams on the brakes, coming down to the roller coaster. Pit stops now separating the GT3 fields as well, as Neil Thompson decides he's had enough of this stint. curious about the weather out there. We see the cloud coverage being plentiful. Battle between Michael D. West and Oscar Corbett begins to spice up a little bit. 5th and 6th in their class, but I imagine Michael D. West will make quick work of Oscar Corbett here. Tim Williams did serve his pit stop on lap number 24. It looks like Oscar Corbett negotiated that one. Michael D. West, relative ease. West back into the top 5, but now it'll be nothing but hard work and determination to climb back up into the top 3. Nothing's going to be a freebie from here on out. Michael West is going to leave Oscar Corbett behind, but not easily, as Corbett comes to grips with the track conditions himself. Michael D. West might be my driver to pick this evening, despite having an earlier slip, trip, and fall. Done his best. That's all we can ever ask of from a driver. Gaps opening up all around. Justin Corbett separated by a near country mile now. 2.2 seconds. Paolo Manetti making his last pit stop of the night. Michael D. West, 1.5 seconds away from Mark Richards and closing. Dan Miller slowly stitching away those laps, but I don't know if he's going to be able to hold on. James Piper has been the most consistent driver, but he hasn't been the fastest in the field. Eight seconds the gap between Piper and Miller right now. Can that one come down? Quiet evening here in Virginia as we wait for the weather to roll in. When will it hit the drivers? When will that critical cutover period be? Constantinos Nicolaitis gets hit with a slowdown penalty on that last lap. Oscar Corbett trying to do things now. He's caught up to the rear end of Michael D. West. Oscar Corbett separates himself from Michael D. West a little bit. Gap opens back up to 1.9 seconds. Let's check back in with the GT3 field, as it's been a little while since we've talked to the likes of Paolo Minetti. Pilot of the number 72, the Italian driver cuts through the field like a knife with 2 positions gained. Andrea Zavagan right now running in 8th position, 7.7 seconds away from Neil Thompson up the road. Dan Miller leads us by 9.5 seconds in the GTP category, in front of Piper. Oliviati in 3rd. Mark Richards rounds out the top 4. Michael West comes down pit road for presumably his last pit stop of the evening. Andreas Havigan going off track there. Having a small excursion, but getting back on the racetrack. No harm, no foul there. Not even a little bit of time lost. Checking in with Mattia Pinadelli and Vincenzo Stagnito. They are separated by a country mile right now. 11.3 seconds on the racetrack is a hefty margin to climb back up. Vincenzo Stagnito getting chased down by a GTP. But no harm, no foul there. The drivers are used to this by now. Been dealing with it for 4 attempts now of getting overtaken. Looky here. If it isn't Mr. Ewers. Trying to dodge some sausages, are we? In his number 55 tonight. He's chasing down none other than George Andrikopoulos, the great command. In his McLaren tonight, the number 96 has gained 11 positions this evening, 6 being in the category alone, so not a bad haul of points for Andrikopoulos. But Mr. Ewers, Mr. Ewers, what are you doing? Chasing down Angela Kapoulis. Perhaps we have a battle brewing here over the last couple of positions. Let's see what Ewers can do to Angela Kapoulis' lap times. 0.2 a hair slower, but closing down the gap. Coming into turn number 1. On board with the sausage man himself, Nick Ewers up the hill through the S's, chasing down Angela Kapoulis. Flat out as can be. Confidence and commitment for the number 55. Oscar Corbett is into the pit lane in the 998 Sausage Artist Racing Machine, out from P5 as he's gained 4 positions in his category tonight. Bernardo De Vezzo is the next driver to come down pit lane for the GTP category behind Oscar Corbett. He'll take his service now. Diego Antonio Fiore, next driver to come down and get some service in the GT3 category. That should be his last stop of the night. Second pit stop to go. And I think the weather was actually looking pretty unruly at the beginning of the session. It seemingly cleared up a little bit towards the end of it. Couple of arguments on the racetrack over who should go where, and a spin for the 83 as the negotiation goes wrong. And I couldn't tell who that was, but it was a sausage. It was a sausage. A little tap to Diego Antonio Fiore. Pendanelli and Ubertali exchange positions there, as Pendanelli did come down pit road.
Vincenzo Stagnito has somehow got to get another 20 seconds to Pendinelli now. I just don't think that's going to be possible for Vincenzo Stagnito to the end of this one. .45 from Stagnito last time around, so he's not losing too much time. .151.7 for the outlap from Pendinelli. Let's see what he can do to improve his consistency during the last 30 minutes of this race. Hear the throttle modulation coming through South Bend. Dan Miller still with the disconnect issues throughout this event. So surprising to see. There's the 420 of Mark Richards cutting through ahead of the 28. Vincenzo Stagnito still in the lead of the GT3 field. Does he have enough fuel to make it to the checkered flag? Time will tell what the decision will be led to. On board now with Pendinelli. As we still continue to ride along with him, we chase down the imaginary Vincenzo Stagnito up the road. This is going to be the battle for the GT3 leaders right here between Pendinelli and Stagnito. Keep our eyes peeled for what James Piper can do, as he's only about 5 and a bit seconds back from Dan Miller, but anything can happen in motor racing, and it typically does. Diego Antonio Fiore gets by Kuz, who's in the pits right now. So Diego Antonio Fiore has taken a second pit stop already and is just picking up the remaining pieces of this second stint. James Piper bring down the gap. Look at him go. Miller makes mistakes. Up into the 37s on that last lap. Look at James Piper go. Wouldn't this be a good haul of points for Piper in his drive for the rest of the season to close out the championship? As we will just have 2 remaining races before we close things out. Dan Miller escaping up the road. James Piper having to negotiate with a little bit of traffic there. Loses out some time. And a spinner. And a spinner. I think that's Oscar Corbett. Or the 6th place car of Tim Williams. That was Tim Williams, excuse me. Fiore locked in with Thompson in the GT3's 5th and 6th, becoming a little spicier than not. Little pushing, a little shoving. Fiore tries to climb back up the order at the roller coaster section, finds a position on Neil Thompson. And we're back. Fiore leads Thompson. In this battle here, Piper tries to chase down Dan Miller. The gap's not going the way in favor of Piper last time by. Mark Richards in the SDR car, 420, to come down pit road for his last stop. Mark Richards on his way out, while Marino Clark is on his way in. GT3 is negotiating real estate on the tarmac with GTPs as well. Oh, look at Dan Miller there to the inside line of the racing point. Number 83. Up the hill through South Bend. Coos and Zavagan are also close to each other on the racetrack, but here now, Fjord and Thompson have separated themselves. Piper also losing touch now between himself and Miller. Bendinelli into pits. I'll be his third one of the evening. Surprise, surprise. I am too. That was a regularly scheduled pit stop there for Bendinelli, but that'll be his third of the evening. Let's go check out Zavagan and Coos. The TRT driver right now a nose ahead of August Coos. Stagnito and Clark now come down pit road. Now this starts to make more sense. Nose to tail, McLaren and Ferrari locked in battle for the final 15 minutes. Remember, Bendinelli had so much to throw away coming into this one. Championship fight not yet solidified yet. Flashy of the headlights there from Coos. He isn't too pleased with that. A little bit of a scare tactic now on the 174 as Zavagan goes off at hog pen. Things settling down, but most importantly, the thing that's spicing up is the battle between Piper and Miller. Traffic now separating the GTP leaders. Can the Pizza Hut deliver? Pit lane for Miller, pit lane for Piper. This should be a splash and dash. No tires taken. Piper's rolling. Miller's rolling. Where is West? About a minute back from here. Richard's a second back from there. Everybody with 2 stops except for Tim Williams, who was only gone for the singular one. Go down the back stretch, bobbing and weaving from James Piper. James Piper, the man, the myth, the legend himself. What can he do to try to match, if not best, Dan Miller's lap times here at VIR? James Piper continuing his charge right now. Looking at the last lap times, it was about a 10th better than Miller. Needs to do better than that. Traffic will help him here. The Hula chases down Angela Capoulas coming through the first corner. And through NASCAR Bend, it will be Angela Capoulas still holding on to that top 10. P9 for him for now. Dahula right now behind Angela Capoulas, chasing down for better than the top 10. Dahula chases down Angela Capoulas in the final 7 minutes of this one, folks. It's still anybody's ball game. Mistakes can be made in the final closing minutes. I'm just glad that the weather didn't forsake the drivers like it did at Fuji. What can be done in the final couple of minutes? Lap 52 about to be completed by Dan Miller here as he's about halfway through that lap. The South African man has climbed up 2 positions this evening in the number 23. Flashy of the headlights there. Vincenzo Stagnito. Flashy. As I think that's Ubertali out in front. Ubertali having not pitted. Trying to make it to the end potentially. Oh, yeah, Miller picking his timing just right there. Vincenzo Stagnito has an opportunity to win this one, but Mattia Ubertali has unlocked his true potential. Stagnito and Ubertali in the closing stages. 2 Lamborghinis on completely different strategies. Vincenzo Stagnito is hungry like a wolf tonight. Hungry for the top spot. Let's see him plot and scheme his way up there. And how Ubertali is going to defend his best. A little bit of separation now between Bertali and Stagnito. Same can be said between Piper and Miller, but the gap here in GC3 slinking these back together at Hogpad. What a great battle here between Ubertali and Stagnito going into the final few minutes. Ubertali, Stagnito, the closest battle on track. Piper did close down his margin, but it's still 3.5 to separate himself from Dan Miller. Now all we need is a little bit of traffic to spice up the variety of life as we go on to the final lap. Coming to the first pair of corners, and a NASCAR and left hook. Coming to the final sector for the final time, and it's a late braking attempt for Vincenzo Stagnito, but it won't be enough. Dan Miller's gonna cross the line and accept victory here at VIR. And look at this. Look at this man here, James Piper in P2, and Michael D. West will bring it home in third with a great recovery drive for him. Back over to the battle between Ubertali and Vincenzo Stagnito here and now. Nothing could be thrown at Ubertali. Everything was thrown from Vincenzo Stagnito, and the flashing of the headlights in congratulations to his fellow countrymen. We'll pull out the unofficial results here in just a moment. Don't go anywhere because we have driver interviews coming up in just a moment.
Take a look at the results here. It was Mattia Ubertali, Vincenzo Stagnino, and Matthew Clark, the 1, 2, 3. And Carlos Awula in 22 positions tonight. Not too shabby. Then Diego Antonio Fiore, Coos, Thompson, Zavagan, Penadelli, Zahula, Ewers, George Androkopoulos, Kesserton, Minetti, Redco, Weehal, Polino, Demrava, Bavarak, and Capello, rounding out the 19 in the GT3. Over to the GTPs, it'll be Dan Miller, James Piper, and Michael D. West, the 1, 2, 3 pair. And Mark Richards, Oscar Corbett, Benedetto De Bello, Tim Williams, Bruno Clark, Thomas Oliviati, Lloyd Butler, Konstantinos Nikolaitis, Robert Spohr, and Daniel Mofat. And ready to talk to those drivers. First, let's talk to Michael D. West. Michael, how did your race go today? I know it didn't turn out or didn't start the way you wanted it to go, but it definitely ended it in a positive fashion. Talk to us about your trials and tribulations in the number 47.
Yeah, no, it's definitely not the ideal start. Like we definitely had some pace in the car, but just once again got sort of pretty unfortunate with the GT3 car just getting very much in the way, and obviously having the contact with the spin because of it obviously put us very much on the back foot. But thankfully, obviously, I had pace, so managed to claw my way back. Stopped early just to try and keep out of some traffic and actually just set some lap times, and that thankfully worked out quite well. I managed to obviously get myself back to third, which all things considered, I'm very happy with.
Yeah, all things considered, you have to take it on the chin for what it is. It's a tricky racetrack here in Virginia that leaves no room for margins for error. And definitely making one small mistake will catch you out with heaps of time, but lessons are learned here at VIR. What's one thing that you'll take away from this North American racetrack?
I mean, it just keeps coming at you, especially when you throw, GT3 cars in the mix. You don't get very much time to take a second. So yeah, definitely build that endurance on it.
For sure. Michael, who would you like to shout out and who would you like to thank on the podium tonight?
Oh, great drive by both Dan and James. Thoroughly deserved. Would have been nice to have been up there with them, but deserving first and second place.
Definitely. Congratulations to him, and we'll talk to him in just a second. Thank you very much for supporting Sausage Dodgers Racing. Michael D. West, have a great night and stay safe out there.
You too.
Next up, we will talk to Dan Miller, the driver who came out with the victory tonight. How does it feel to be at the top step of the podium tonight?
Oh, it feels great. Much more comfortable win than last week. Yeah, I think Michael got really unlucky. I think he was very similar to me on pace. And then I don't know what happened with the back mark. I need to go watch it. But yeah, he just dropped back. And then I think Thomas also had a few incidents. And he was also at good pace. And James nearly had me at the end. It's a bit of an interesting one. Like in quali, my audio just cut out. I had no audio, so I was like guessing when to change gears, and I was like redlining the thing, and so I was happy to get P3. And then towards the end, I had a massive screen freeze, like on the back straight. As I was overtaking GT3, my whole screen froze for about 3 seconds, and when it unfroze, I was in the grass right next to the wall. And fortunately, I didn't hit anything, so I managed to rejoin. I only lost like 3 or 4 seconds to James, but it wasn't smooth sailing for sure. Even if it might have looked like that from the gap, on this track, every time you come up to a GT3, you're kind of just praying they see you, because it's really hard to go side by side through corners, and you have to assume they're going to trust you. So yeah, that was always sketchy, but yeah, obviously really glad I managed to bring it home.
And obviously it was a great race.
and a good result for you in the Hall of Points for the championship. Dan Miller, who would you like to shout out and thank on the victory here?
I'd like to shout out my girlfriend. She's here with me today, and she's been a bit of a race engineer, helping out. I'd like to shout out Michael and James, especially. I'm lucky for Michael, and yeah, really good pace to James. Congrats to both of them on the podium. Long time coming, especially with James. So yeah.
Thank you very much for supporting the Sausage Dodgers racing community, sir. Really appreciate seeing you on track. Dan Miller, thank you for joining me in the broadcast booth. Have a great night and stay safe out there.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Sago. See you next week.
Bye-bye for now. And folks, that's going to wrap things up for us on behalf of Sausage Dodgers Racing, on behalf of AK Esports. Been a pleasure to take you from green to checkered flag, but all good things have to come to an end. I've been your host, Sagar Bakshi, taking from green to checkered flag tonight. And next week, we'll be back same time, same place. Have a great night. Most importantly, make sure you stay safe out there. Goodbye for now.
All the voices in my head getting louder. They told me not to tell you, but